The other day, Jen Campbell made a video called Falling in Love with a Book, and that was all about this book called Arcadia by Ian Pearce and how she had just absolutely fallen in love with it. It's a great video and the book is incredible and you should definitely go and watch it if just my saying that it's incredible doesn't convince you enough. But I'm here today to talk about another book, and I've stolen Jen's title because it's a good title and I want to share this book with you, and I haven't heard that much about it on YouTube. It has had a lot of buzz in the bookish world in general though, and that's because it won the Costa Prize this year, and not only did it win its category, but it won the overall Costa Prize. Now this was unusual because this book is a children's book, and that's unusual for me that I loved it so much as well, because I haven't really found children's books that I've read as an adult that I've connected with that much. So this was the first children's book to win this prize since Philip Pullman's The Amber Spyglass. So if you followed the Costa Prize, you already know that I'm talking about The Lie Tree by Frances Hardinge. This is a new edition that has been brought out since it won the prize. I'll put the old edition here. It's a YA book, or a kind of middle grade to YA book, and that cover kind of reflects that a bit more. This is more of an adult looking cover, I think, but it uses the same imagery. So I listened to this book as an audiobook, and I would highly recommend it because it is read by Emilia Fox, who is a British actress, and you may know her from the TV show Silent Witness. I think she's a fantastic actress and she has a wonderful voice and she does such justice to this book. I finished the audiobook a couple of days ago and I'm actually re-listening to it now. It was that good, and I picked up a physical copy. Okay, so the book itself is historical fiction, and it is so multi-layered and complex for a book that is written for children and for young adults. I was just absolutely blown away. I think a lot of books underestimate their audience when it comes to children's writing and young adult writing. And books with a level of complexity that is similar to adult books are few and far between. It is set in the sort of late Victorian era, and it is set on this island. At the beginning, we see the main character, who is called Faith, and her family travelling on this mailboat to this remote island. And we're not quite sure why it is that they're going there. Supposedly they're going there because there's this archaeological dig, but we know from the outset that this is something else going on under the surface. Because of the setting and because of the storyline, it has this very gothic feel to it. So it kind of reminded me of something like Daphne du Maurier. It's sort of reminiscent of Jane Eyre, things like that. It's also a detective novel in some ways. It's certainly a mystery, and our protagonist is trying to crack this mystery. We find out fairly early on that her father has been involved in some sort of scientific scandal, and it takes a while for her to figure out the ins and outs of this, and that's about all I should say, I think. It's got such a great mix of things in there, and the different layers of the narrative are fantastic. What I really loved about it is the way that this is a coming-of-age story. The way that it's written is, it's third person, but it's from the perspective of Faith. So we see the way that she sees these characters, and we can maybe read between the lines a little more than she can, especially if you're reading this as an adult, and she kind of misses some of the social cues. She overestimates some characters and underestimates others, and that makes for really great narrative tension. Now, that's not to say that Faith is stupid or silly in any way. In fact, she is highly, highly intelligent, and she has a lot in common with Lyra Silvertongue from His Dark Materials. Of course, she's living in this world where women aren't properly educated, especially in the natural sciences, which was what she's interested in. And she's living in this world which has just been revolutionised by Darwin, and everything is changing. Her family is very religious, and her father is a minister as well as being a natural scientist. It's said at one point that many people of his class going to Oxford and Cambridge get taught natural sciences, and that this is something that gets sparked, and a lot of them they carry it on as a hobby. I find this time in history very, very interesting because technology and science is moving very, very quickly. You've got photography happening, and there are lots of references to photography in this, which I find absolutely fascinating. And this really ties into the Gothic element as well, because you've got this weird Victorian obsession with death. And that's because so many children died within the first few months of birth. So many women died in childbirth, and I mean, diseases were pretty rife in this time. So it was a Victorian custom to take pictures of the recently deceased, and things like taking locks of hair was very common, and sort of weaving them into different tapestries or pieces of artwork, or putting them in lockets and similar things. So that's kind of the framework that this novel is working in. And of course we have the terribly antiquated gender roles, and that's what our protagonist is fighting against. So it's, in some ways, it's your typical underdog story. It's this young woman trying to prove herself in a man's world. And not only is she female, but she's at that age where she's between girlhood and adulthood. She is 14 in this novel. It has so many layers of symbolism and mix of science and religion. And I do hate to compare things to his Dark Materials, because I've never found anything that I've loved quite as much as the Philip Pullman books. But I must say that this comes pretty close. I don't think I've read a children's book since his Dark Materials or Harry Potter that I've enjoyed as much as this. And I know that that is a really big statement. I was very, very, very impressed by this. And there were several points towards the end where I was worried that it was kind of going to fall into cliche, or it was going to fall into very typical tropes of Victorian novels and also of YA novels. And I was very relieved to see her kind of subvert these things, and it doesn't take the routes that you expect it to. It also could have fallen into very heavy-handed morality towards the end, in the way that many Victorian novels do again, but again, she avoids that very, very well. And on top of all of this, the writing is really good. I just want to read you this little passage because it's one that stood out to me. Back in the trophy room, the gentlemen would be taking the leash off their conversation. Likewise, here in the drawing room, each lady quietly relaxed and became more real, expanding into the space left by the men. Without visibly changing, they unfolded like flowers or knives. So if you want to read a gothic Victorian novel that also has feminism and science and religion and really well-crafted characters and symbolism and just all of the good things, then please, please, please read this book. If you've read it, please talk to me in the comments. I'm dying to discuss this novel. And if you haven't, then do. Really do. Alright, so that's all I'm going to say on the library. If you want to find me elsewhere online, I am at Holly Dunn Design on Twitter, Instagram and Pinterest, and my website is hollydundesign.com. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye! Got a camera with a full battery and lots of memory cards, and I've got my sketchbooks, I've got my pens.